Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here. Today we're going to be talking about something that might help you future DMs out there. And if you have something to share, do it in the comments below. But how do you plan out and take notes for your D&D campaigns? Well, I use a basic outline for my campaigns. For instance, right now I have a whole world set up for my players called Antara for our next campaign, after we finish the one we're playing in. I'm an exclusive DM. None of my players are on Quora, so I am free to spoil my plot to you. The basic outline I have is thus. A small desert hamlet called Agora is constantly being raided by what are called the Agorian bandits, while all the able-bodied men and soldiers are called to the north of the country to a border dispute of another country, Ata Nador. The party accepts the quest, and they set out to try and find the location of the Agorian bandits. During their journey, they see a massive green bean shoot into the sky from the southern province of Barren Shale, which is a nation of ruin by a war long ago that radiates madness from within its borders that drives out all life or turns you into a horrid, mad beast of who you once were. The party will finish their quest and stop the bandits and will then choose what to do with the green beam, with the most likely answer being that they inform the proper authorities. And so, they journey through the cities and provinces to get to the capital. For each location, I have prepared 1 to 3 plot hooks for the party to take interest in, but I leave alone if they don't bite. I leave all main plots except for ones I secretly deem time sensitive, in which case bad things will happen if left untouched for a long period of time until they decide to take it. Now eventually, they will have leveled up a bit, and have garnered a name for themselves by the time they reach the capital, where the council will send them on various missions as they learn the truth. A Lich is preparing an undead army in the Barren Shale, where he will overtake all of Antara. The party has options here, of course, and I'll let them weigh in on how to handle it. Do they unite the nations of Antara against this crisis that hasn't been seen since the Mind Flayer War 1,000 years ago? Do they prepare a small force and a means to infiltrate the Barren Shale? Or do they just say, "Hey, we did our civic duty, it's your problem now"? No matter what they choose, there will be 3 agents of the Lich, tasked with hunting down any opposition to the Lich's plans. And then the party has popped up on their radar. With this, I actually have been inspired by XCOM 2's War of the Chosen expansion. Each one will be given their own character sheet and will have different classes, which level up in the background. Sometimes they will show up as a pair or even rarely as a trio. Whenever they die, they'll respawn at their lair. The party can choose to infiltrate the lair and kill them for good, but it's gonna be pretty dangerous. There are events that will happen if the party doesn't respond to them, as the Lich isn't just waiting for the party to show up. So, if they dawdle and take their time, I will progress the Lich's plans. For instance, the Lich wants to disrupt his biggest foe, a nation called Kareth, whose capital is housed in a giant active volcano. Their engineers and mages have assured people that it's stable and shall remain so, and they use the steam power to generate heat for the city. The Lich himself will show up eventually, carrying with him an artifact that opens a doorway to the elemental plane of fire. By throwing it into the center of the volcano and activating it, the reaction of the elemental plane of fire will cause the volcano to become unstable, and the city will erupt, killing thousands of civilians, soldiers, and important NPCs such as Queen Kadera, a very likely ally of the party. Of course, this can be avoided if the party handles it in time, and events leading up to it will happen whether the party plays on it or not. So there's an idea of how my campaign is going to work. I have a beginning, I have a path to the middle, and I have several adventure threads in between. My philosophy in designing campaigns is to have a blueprint for the adventure, like one might have a blueprint for a bridge. As the party continues on, the story builds itself as if the bridge from the blueprint were coming to life and building itself while the players were walking across it. So for me, I write the events that I think are awesome, story ideas I want my players to experience, and threads I want my players to pull. I have some important NPCs ready to progress the story, and many that I will make up on the spot as needed. And after every adventure, I will write down the events as I remember them, Write down NPCs I invented in case they come back to him or her. In essence, I have all the threads to a beautiful tapestry, but I will let the players do the weaving rather than the other way around. And if a cool cutscene doesn't go my way, I'll archive it, reskin it, and use it for later. Do you remember that awesome guy you had standing on a bridge waiting to confront the party who they blew up with the bridge before it could even happen? Okay, reskin the bad guy and have him stand over a fiery lava pit or something. Players drill through a dungeon and avoid all the encounters, but make it right to the treasure? Aha, recycled the dungeon. They didn't see it anyway. How would they know you recycled it? Oh, when at sea, does the ship command the tides? No. Likewise, the DM cannot control the ebb and flow of the chaotic nature of the players and thus the tides of the game. You cannot control the wind. Have you played Wind Waker, sir? But you can adjust the sails. As the DM, it is your responsibility to adjust your campaign parameters to be as flexible as possible for the results of your campaign. Never get angry if the players circumvent your intentions. Just keep designing a story and be glad you have awesome tales to tell. For instance, last week I was running Waterdeep Dragon Heist with my friends. They were attempting to enter a Xanathar hideout, and they saw 2 holes where one could shoot arrows from, each across from each other. Inside each one were sleeping goblins. The party's Kenku stealthily fired his bow at the first goblin and killed him in his sleep with a natural 20, and maximum damage with it. Lucky bird brain. The Dragonborn wizard attempted to do the same thing but ended up waking the goblin up. The goblin got up and started to run, so to prevent him from warning his allies, the Kenku attempts to shout something at the goblin in Goblin that he heard one goblin shouting to another in an alleyway, in hopes he'll stop. And remember that Kenku can only repeat things verbatim that they've heard and are incapable of their own dialogue. For instance, this Kenku's name is Sound of Arrow Hitting Wood. I roll that Sound of Arrow Hitting Wood doesn't know what the goblin said, so he would have to make his persuasion roll with disadvantage. Well, the Kenku rolls a 4 and the goblin stops after hearing the sound, looking both confused and slightly aroused, but then tries to run again in the other direction. The half-orc barbarian then decides to go full Kool-Aid Man and burst through the wall. Well, fine. He certainly can try. So I ask him to roll an athletics check against the integrity of the wall, which he rolls a 1 for his structural integrity. Oh yeah! He burst through the wall like it was paper. These were really ancient structures. And then the Tabaxi monk rushes ahead and full-on swipes the ever-loving crap out of the goblin, bringing him down. So the encounter ends, and they decide to go through the new door they just created. I went with it, even though it brought them straight to the end of the dungeon where an Illithid and a half-orc wizard were torturing the guy the party was looking for. The Illithid escaped because I'm not letting a level 1 adventurers fight a fully realized mind flayer, though he did try to mind control the barbarian while he fled. And they were stuck fighting the half-orc and the pet intellect devourer. Overall, it was a good adventure, one they'll never forget, all because I let them smash through a wall they weren't supposed to go through. I went with the flow, and the players a week later are still texting me saying, "Hey, remember when X player's character crashed through the wall? That was a classic." And that's really what matters. Having memories of adventures that you had with your friends, and of course family, when real memories fade into the annals of time. So when I design my campaigns, I do so with loose hooks and events that are almost always subject to change. Lore, however, is something I design ahead of time and will fit into the current campaign as is. It gives structure to myself as well as a rich world for players to, well, play in. In addition, as a bonus tip for you, I create 30-minute loops for music I own for any given atmosphere. I have dungeon, action, boss, civilization, towns, villages, cities, etc., night, nature, castle, intense, depression, and upbeat. It helps create the proper ambience I desire for gaming sessions. Thanks for reading. I know it was a long one, but I hope this helps. Feel free to ask me questions about anything, as I'm a seasoned DM with lots of tips. Hey, thank you for all the tips, and if you'd like to share more, please do so in the comments below if you're actually watching this. We really appreciate it. I have quite a range in how I do things like that. Sometimes I'll just have a few notes. Other times I'll actually write out the full description as a bit of a script and read it off at the table. You'll see it a lot that you should paraphrase the description in a pre-written adventure, which I agree with, but when I write it out, then it's in my voice, and so it comes out natural. For me, it depends on how much detail I think something needs. If setting the tone and feel is really that important, I'll go into more detail and write it out. Like, I want the area to feel creepy and oppressive. I can write it out so I make sure I get all the senses in and can take time to craft that description. If it's just a random village, then I don't put in as much time because the players already have an idea of what it looks like. So it really all depends of how much detail you think you need to set the stage and how much the feel of the location matters. It also depends on how good you are coming up with descriptions on the fly, which, like most skills, is something you get better at with more practice. When I was running a Pathfinder campaign, I'm high-fiving you right now and you can't even see it, I had a Google Docs folder full of text files, spreadsheets, maps, drawn in CAD software, images, and other information about the campaign. Eventually, this reached several hundred files, as it included separate files on all major locations and NPCs, and a file for each session of the game with my notes on what had happened during this. I would have my iPad with me during the game and pull up files as I needed to during the game sessions. For ease of access, I would also print out hard copies of some of the information that would be relevant to that night's session in advance, so I wouldn't be fumbling with looking up files during the game. Always a good thing to do is to have a hard copy of all the current events that are going to be going through it. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course, if you have any tips on how you plan and take notes for your D&D campaigns, please leave it down in the comments below. Love you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.